Oh, it's like a dad grunt if I ever heard one. Pull up my pants. Do a little zhuzh, as mom always says. Little zhuzh. I don't know how people learn the English language. We have so many little quips and remarks. Like zhuzh. Is that even English? Is that French? Happy to have you back for Be Well with Alex, or if you're new here, welcome. Today, you are joining for a very special episode. So if it's your first time, let's just say buckle up, buckaroo, all right? We're going to be getting down and dirty talking about gut health. I've been wanting to speak on gut health for a while now, but it's such a large topic that it was almost a little daunting to me, and we might have to split this into two parts depending on how much time we do have. Gut health, you hear it talked about all the time today in the media specifically. There's always some influencer promoting something, whether it's probiotic pills, some new diet fad, etc. We're going to be talking about gut health today in the lens of recovery, just because this is the second most requested episode I've had from my recovery page on Instagram. If you're new here, that page is Be Well with Alex. You can just look that up on Instagram, should come right up. But we talk about a lot of things like gut health on my page from the lens of recovery. That's what we're going to be talking about today. This is very personal to me because I've struggled a lot with gut health throughout the entirety of my life. I've always had what some people call a sensitive stomach, potentially IBS. I was diagnosed with IBS, but as we'll talk about later, I also think IBS is overly diagnosed these days, and same with ADHD. So definitely know I have the ADHD. That one proves way too true, but IBS I've always been skeptical of. I always wonder if it's just, having a sensitive stomach. Anyways, I could go on that tangent forever. We're going to be talking about IBS. We're going to be talking about gastroparesis, which is something I struggled with in recovery. All of those gut motility issues, poop problems. Yeah, we're going there. We're going to talk people. We're doing it. So you're in the right place if you've experienced any of these issues, honestly, in or out of recovery. We'll talk about it all and maybe how to make your gut biome a little healthier. First, we're going to start with our lemons and mangoes. My mango is that I'm unemployed. That might come as a shocker to some of you. And of course, there is some negatives that go along with that as well. I'm really at peace today, and I haven't been at peace for quite some time now. My days are actually busier than ever, surprisingly, but I feel like I'm putting a lot of time and effort into personal and professional growth in areas that I'm passionate about, which I couldn't have said towards the tail end of my career. I felt very stagnant and like I wasn't growing as a professional or as an individual. So I'm really pushing myself during this time, but also giving myself time to relax because, again, towards the tail end of my career, I was very high strung, high stress, emotional, and now I feel very at ease, at peace. I'm just really holding on to that and just enjoying that time. I mean, I woke up this morning, I'm like, what even fucking day? I don't know. I thought it was Thursday. I still don't know what day it is. What day is it? I think it's Tuesday. Yeah, it's Tuesday. See, I don't even know. And I'm kind of enjoying that because when I'm going through the workday at any full-time job I'm at, it's always like boom, 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 next thing, next thing, next thing. Now I actually have more fluidity to my schedule and not as much rigidity. So it's been really, really nice. I have more of an appetite back, higher libido, like I'm just all around just a much happier person. On top of that, I really enjoy working from home in general. Of course, I do miss the sociability. With that, I'm really happy to be speaking to you in a camera today. I'm like, woo, people, you're my people today. So I do miss that aspect of things, which is why I like those more hybrid roles. At the same time, I really missed working from home because the house is just so much more organized, which makes me feel more organized and at peace. I feel like the commute just took so much time, effort, and energy out of my day. I don't know how people opt to have an hour plus commute every day. It's insane. One way is like wild to me. That's why I like more of those hybrid roles because I feel like I get the best of both worlds. I get to be around people some days, and I actually do enjoy getting out of the house and driving in those instances. And then other days I'm home and I'm able to actually get my ducks in a row and do the workouts I enjoy in the morning and then go straight into work. And I can work longer hours but feel less stressed doing so. I really like that trade-off. I might have to give that up again in my future career. I don't know right now because, again, I don't really know where I'm heading. But if I get to keep this schedule, it'd be very, very nice because I'm vibing right now. I'm just living. My other mango is that my birthday was a hit. I often don't throw myself a birthday party every year because I'm afraid to be let down or disappointed if people don't show up, if the birthday goes wrong. I have a lot of stress being hostess. I'd rather just go to a party. I like being hostess sometimes, but like very rarely. Dinner parties are fun. I think at this point in my life, I'd rather just go to a dinner party though and not deal with the stress. I was scared, but this year I was like, you know what? I'm going to throw myself a party because I haven't done that in a while. I normally just go to dinner, take the day. Had a really fun party. Honestly, a lot of things went wrong during my party, but I wasn't stressing about it. I just went with the flow. It's a little miserable because it was cold and rainy and we were doing putt-putt, but my friends still came out and people drove 2+ hours to come to my birthday party, some of which were hobbling on crutches because they had just gotten in accidents a couple days before and they still came. I just felt very loved and supported. And even with everyone who reached out to me on my birthday, if you were one of those people, I really appreciate that. I'm not one of those people who makes a big deal out of it normally. Like, my birthday's coming up. I want that confidence that other people have to do that. Even though I didn't, I still got a lot of birthday wishes the days before. That made me feel really warm and fuzzy inside as well, that people just thought of me. As humans, we want to be accepted. Don't we all want to be accepted and loved? I said that my lemon here is also unemployment or work from home. I think when I was writing this, it was twofold. Last week, it was rainy all week. So I was stuck inside. I did not want to go out and run errands, go to the gym, things I normally enjoy doing during the day. I just wanted to stay inside. It was making me super depressed. I think that's why I wrote this. And then also worrying about health insurance, worrying about money, like all those things really stress me out. And I'm trying to put on a good face and be like, yeah, I'm excited to go do XYZ. But really in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't want to spend any more money. And I'm scared that my basic needs aren't going to be met soon, even though I do have a bit of a buffer. But that does freak me out. So that's my lemon with that. That's gone away this week a little bit. The finances, not so much, but definitely the getting outside because the sun is back out and shining. Been going to the gym. I've been running my errands. I've been meeting up with friends for a little bit during the day just to make sure that my days aren't full on stuck at home. Of course, responsibilities have to come first, but outside of that, I've really been making an effort to get outside, get vitamin D, be social more than I had done in the office before. So that's made me more happy than unhappy this week. But last week was a little depressing. And by little, I mean a lot. My other lemon is that social media is depressing. Originally, the idea of this ultimate free time, this ultimate freedom was so exciting to me, to work on social media, to work on this podcast full time. However, I still have so many things preoccupying my day that I really haven't had a lot of time to dedicate to my social media or the podcast. In fact, I feel like I've had less time, which is frustrating to me, and gone in this pattern where I'm ghosting my accounts, posting a lot, getting burnt out and ghosting my accounts again, posting a lot. And I really want to try and find this middle ground and make it consistent, like I was actually doing while I was working a full-time job. I don't know how I've fallen off the wagon with that. I think for me in my life, I've found, unfortunately, that whenever one bottle gets knocked off the shelf, it kind of creates a cascading effect where then all the bottles are broken on the floor. That's what happened after my job and I split. It's like that happened and then all these other things happened and I was like, oh, we have a lot of pieces to pick up. The only difference is I'm a lot mentally stronger now than I was a couple of years ago, but it doesn't make it any less hard. You know what I'm saying? I look up sometimes and I'm like, can I please catch a break? Like one break, please. Give me a win. I just need a win. Cause right now I feel like I'm playing the board game of life and I had gotten a lottery ticket where everything was amazing, peak career, pinnacle career, loving my weekends, my days, everything was perfect. I felt really good at where I was at in recovery. And then boom, it was just like one thing after the next came crashing down. And I'm like, even my therapist was like, yeah, your life kind of goes like huge tidal waves and you just want some rolling waves for a while, don't you? And I was like, yes, please. That's all I want. Or give me a life vest or something to help keep me afloat. But is all I got to say to that. On top of that, I've lost my passion for social media a little bit. This could be taken as a vain thing to say. Sometimes I judge myself quite harshly for it. I'll be honest, ever since the shadow ban, I know I can't let that go, but my account has just lost followers and lost likes and lost views, and I've never really been able to regain it. As much as I want to say, yeah, the posting's for me, it's for the creativity, it's for helping the followers that I do have, that is great. Don't get me wrong. But it's just hard to go months and months and months on end seeing a decline as opposed to this rapid growth that I was seeing before. And it's making me really discouraged. Like, should I even be doing this anymore? Do people really want to hear what I have to say? I start getting that dark mindset again, and I don't want to go there, but I do, and that makes me a little less discouraged or a little more discouraged as well. So that's a very real thought also. Enough about me because we have a lot to cover. Let's get into it, shall we? When you force yourself to restrict or purge, it's no surprise that over time your body is going to develop GI issues like constipation, acid reflux, and difficulty swallowing. This is because during starvation, the digestive system slows down, reducing enzyme production and weakening muscles that are no longer being used. The unfortunate case not talked enough about here is when you try and refeed after an extended period of essentially stomach atrophy, you're going to experience severe dysfunction as your systems work to get back up and running again. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there are no shortcuts to this. Believe me, I have tried everything. However, there are ways to cope with the discomfort that are very effective, which we will talk about later, but the only way out of this is through. You can't go around, you can't shortcut it. You need to teach your digestive system how to work on its own again, which is why most medical professionals, they won't offer any form of prescription that will help fix this. Prescriptions can also be very dangerous depending on the prescription and depending on your own needs. I always say consult a doctor first. We will talk about the risks regarding these prescriptions, but first let's break down the different issues that many people experience and why. Every time I hear the word gastroparesis, I still shudder, only because this was my biggest obstacle personally in recovery. Gastroparesis, or delayed stomach emptying, is when the vagus nerve that allows food to empty into your small intestine, it gets damaged, causing food to sit in the stomach much longer than normal. Imagine you eat breakfast, and it can even be a pretty light breakfast. Let's say you have a couple waffles, something carb heavy, a lot of fruit, stuff that would burn up really quickly. Then you get to lunch and you're starving by the time 11, 12 rolls around because it's been a good 3 hours or so. And typically people on average need to eat every few hours. So you get to lunch and you're starving. Now, someone with gastroparesis, that same meal might sit in their stomach all the way up to lunchtime because the only thing pulling the food down is not muscle contractions in their stomach, but gravity alone. So the food's going to move a lot slower because their nerve is damaged from their stomach to their small intestine, not allowing food to empty in the small intestine. And then also the muscles are atrophied, they're weakened, they don't contract as quickly as they should. Hard thing is you have to eat anyways with gastroparesis because you have to get in enough nutrients during the day. And also, at least for the recovery kind of gastroparesis, you need to teach your body to work properly again. And that only comes from consistent, adequate intake. It sucks because you're still full and you're like, I have to eat again. Whereas you might not be hungry until hours later, 3 or 4 in the afternoon. This causes deeply uncomfortable symptoms such as feeling full shortly after starting a meal and long after eating a meal, nausea and vomiting, abdominal bloating and pain, and poor blood sugar control. I can speak to the last one for sure. Luckily, I did not have much nausea and vomiting. I only ever had the nausea after big meals, but not really the vomiting. There were a couple times where I was scared I was going to, but I didn't. And that's one of my main fears is, especially with ARFID, was eating to the point of getting sick. But unfortunately, I had to eat to the point of getting sick in order to teach my muscles to work properly again. Poor blood sugar. My blood sugar was a roller coaster because my body wasn't digesting at a consistent rate. It would rise really rapidly and then crash. So I would get the jitters, I would get the shakes, and then I'd fall asleep. And I was always needing to either intake more sugar or even take a brief lie down just to get my body regulated again. But as I'll mention in a moment, before I scare you with all this, those symptoms are temporary, only while you're going through the recovery process with this. Basically, you never have an appetite and you're always full, which leads to more weight loss because people think, oh, I only need to eat when I'm hungry. And my body isn't signaling to me that I'm hungry right now, so I don't need to eat. In fact, for me, I remember saying to my therapist, it always felt wrong to eat. When I was full, it's like I shouldn't be eating more because I'm not hungry. That scared me so bad, especially with having ARFID and being scared of getting sick by eating too much. That terrified me, but I had to keep eating in order to get my stomach to work properly again. Now, getting full early on in meals and having discomfort while refeeding is completely normal in eating disorder recovery because your stomach capacity reduces to about 27 to 36% due to the muscle failing to stretch with your irregular intake. So you have to learn how to stretch that stomach again like a balloon. And that's going to cause a lot of physical discomfort in doing that. How do you know whether you're struggling with just a shrunken stomach and slow motility, or you're dealing with the more intense gastroparesis? Because they are different. I'll let you in on a little bit of my experience to explain better. Shrunken stomach and slow motility, super common. Gastroparesis, a little bit more intense and very numbers based. You're going to have a little bit slower digestion in recovery just because your muscles aren't used to working, and you're going to have that smaller stomach just because your stomach hasn't been stretched in a long time. That's going to create some physical discomfort. Where gastroparesis is different is a lot more food is left in your stomach for over an extended period of time. I believe it has to be above 10% of the meal left in your stomach beyond 4 hours of eating to be diagnosed with gastroparesis, and then there's different levels to it. So you can have slowed motility, but maybe not to the extent of gastroparesis, and gastroparesis can be a lot more intense. What led me to get tested for gastroparesis? I was in the facility and I was really trying hard to get through my meals like all of the other girls. I was not avoiding it. I wanted to gain weight. My eating disorder was not based on body image. It was solely based on depression and trauma I had been through where I had stopped eating almost entirely. Obviously, that created a lot of stomach issues where it really hindered my ability to eat again on my own. I went to this facility. I was trying my hardest. I found that while other girls could get in a quarter of their plate, a half a plate, 3/4 of their plate before feeling full and still finish, I was getting a couple bites into my meal and then being like, oh my God, I have these feelings of needing to purge, even though that wasn't my type of eating disorder, and I don't want to. I remember the facilitators, they just kept being like, no, you just need to eat more, you just need to eat more, you just need to eat more. And I remember telling them, I'm like, I will be violently ill if I eat more. I physically feel like I cannot do this. And I understand where you're coming from. You think it's just a mental block, but I think something serious is going on here. I am so glad I listened to myself because I left. I ended up getting a dietitian and a gastroenterologist. And I found that it was not all in my head. There was something serious going on with my stomach that needed addressing. I ended up getting tested for gastroparesis, which I'll talk about in a moment what that test looks like. And I ended up getting the diagnoses back that I had not mild, not medium, not moderate. I had the highest level of gastroparesis. I had severe gastroparesis to where I remember my dietitian and my gastroenterologist got the results back and they were like, yeah, that checks out. That's what we've been thinking. And they put me on an all liquid diet to start. Then I had to introduce solids again. And then from there, I kind of worked my way up, weaning off the liquids and into the solids. That's how I personally had to do things. And I would have never known that if I had stayed in the facility and just tried to muster through. Like I could have seriously ended up being in a bad situation. So I'm glad that I stuck to my gut in that moment and I got tested. Not saying that you need to run out and get tested tomorrow, but I'm just saying if you're having a similar experience, it might not hurt looking into. I will admit the tests are kind of expensive though. Let's talk about what the tests look like. You need a dietitian or gastroenterologist to call this in. It's called a gastric emptying study, and it measures how quickly food leaves your stomach. You consume a meal, oftentimes an egg sandwich, and they give you clear instructions on how to make it. You make it yourself at home. Some places they provide you with one, but it has to be plain egg whites, no seasonings, on 2 pieces of white bread, nothing else. That's it. I guess the radioactive element has to have something to bind to. You make the egg sandwich, or in some cases, it's, I think, plain oatmeal, like nothing in the oatmeal, just oats and water, and then they put it in that. You're supposed to eat the entire sandwich or the entire bowl of oats, and then you go to a clinic and they have you sit in the chair, you eat the sandwich or the porridge in front of them, and you take your first photo. They do an x-ray of your stomach, they take all the photos they need, they mark where the food is in your stomach, and then you have to come back every couple hours. When you go in again, they take another image, and after 4 hours, they see how much is left in your stomach of that meal. They say that if it's over 10% at the end of those 4 hours, then you have the gastroparesis diagnoses. But again, there are different levels to that depending on what percentage of food is left in your stomach. So yeah, that was my experience with that. Every time I kind of just left and I did work in my car because I think I was working at the time. Just did work in my car, went back, got an image done, did more work in my car, went back, got an image done, etc. And then it takes a while for you to get your results. I think it took a couple weeks for me to get mine, but it was worth it for me. Again, you have to understand whether or not that's worth it for you. I had to know. I mean, regardless, I knew I had to make a change, but I also felt like I had to know whether or not I had to rule that out as a possibility. What do you do once you get the results back? What do you do with this? Is there a cure to gastroparesis? Unfortunately not. Unlike reduced stomach capacity and slowed motility, which is reversible, gastroparesis is not, at least not entirely. So I'm going to live with gastroparesis the rest of my life. It is different between patients who are diabetic versus patients who have had an eating disorder. I know with eating disorders, you can make the level better even if it doesn't go away entirely for either case scenario. People who are diabetic, they struggle sometimes with the severest version for their whole entire lives. Luckily, with eating disorders, it is reversible to an extent. So let's talk about what that looks like. With stomach capacity specifically, your stomach can be stretched like a balloon back to its normal size in as little as 4 to 8 weeks, if and only if you are eating repeatedly beyond comfort. That is the key here. In order to stretch your stomach like a balloon, you can't just stop when you're like halfway blown up. You got to stop when it's fully expanded. And that's going to cause some pressure, right? Those walls are going to feel like they're thinning out a little bit. And you're going to be like, oh, I'm not happy with this. But that's how you're going to be able to stretch your stomach back to its normal size. Even if you have a gastroparesis diagnosis, you might have that shrunken stomach on top of it. Same thing. With the gastroparesis, you're going to have to eat to discomfort regardless, which is going to come very early on, maybe after a couple bites. But same thing, just keep in mind that you're getting those muscles to work again and you're getting that stomach to stretch again, which is going to bring down the severity level over time. Odds are you might not have gastroparesis if this is something you struggle with. You might just have that slowed motility or the stomach shrink that you're confusing with gastroparesis. Or maybe you've looked up gastroparesis before and you're like, I must have that. Not necessarily. You might just be dealing with the shrunken stomach or the slowed motility. Again, this only occurs in 4.9% of people with a history of eating disorders. Now, I can just envision some of you freaking out right now. Like, what if I'm in that 4.9% and I can never eat again without pain and suffering? That is 100% what I thought. I was like, this is never going to get better. I'm never going to eat normally again. I'm going to be confined to feeding tubes and liquids for the rest of my life. I was full on spiraling because no one had a chance to walk me through this. Like, I'm going to walk you through this right now. So first off, let's get out of freak out mind and let's just take a deep breath because we're just working in the unknown right now. You don't know anything. Let's take it like that. All right. We both don't know anything. Moving forward, take a deep breath with me. Let's not freak out over what we don't know yet. There are ways to cope with and reduce the severity of gastroparesis that are very realistic and effective. I won't get into all of the motility medications right now or surgeries, only because A, those are very risky. Those are last resort measures that I personally would not promote or particularly want to get into. Please speak with your doctor if you are struggling with this and you are curious. B, this could turn into a whole episode about delayed stomach emptying very easily, and we need to move on because we have so much more to cover. That being said, I never give you a problem without a solution, do I? With that, what is the one thing that you hear in eating disorder recovery constantly that is the cure-all? Hint, it's the same as with reduced stomach capacity. The only way out of an eating disorder is through. I said that before, I'll say it again. Our shared goal here in recovery is to eat as much as we can while mitigating as many of the most painful symptoms. Notice I didn't say all, just the most painful symptoms that we can, because we're going to have symptoms. So let's try and just make this as comfortable as possible. We can't get rid of all of it. Eat as much as you can, coping strategies. Moving on. That's how we're going to gain back some stomach size and some motility. What are some less painful ways to do this very early on? One, work with your dietitian and gastroenterologist to make dietary changes that provide the most comfort while also progressing in your recovery. I wouldn't recommend doing this on your own unless you're heavily monitored by a parent or someone trustworthy. Even then, I'm saying that out loud and I'm like, maybe not. Only because some changes involve eating smaller meals more frequently, reducing fat and fiber intake, choosing well-cooked vegetables, avoiding carbonated beverages, etc. You have to be careful with all of that because these are things that you might have already cut out of your diet for fear of weight gain. With that, you want to be able to challenge these things, but maybe we do it progressively. Again, that's up to you and your gastroenterologist how much you want to push, how early on. But some of those changes do make gastroparesis easier as well. I'll talk about my personal case scenario. For me personally, I did opt at first, again, to rely solely on liquids, eat smaller meals, and build my way up. I didn't do the all in version of recovery that some people preach, where you just go straight to 10-inch dinner plates and do the whole meals and the whole 9 yards. I did wean myself into it, but I had a very strict schedule and progression plan on what that would look like so that I wasn't falling back into eating disorder habits. Same thing with increasing my fiber intake, increasing my fat intake. I had to eat very low fat and low fiber early on because those things tend to sit in the stomach longer, making it harder for me to get in volume. At the beginning, my personal plan was just focused mainly on calories, calories, calories. Didn't matter what it was. We just need to get in the calories, pack a punch, most calories as possible was my goal. And then as time evolved, I was learning to introduce more of the fibrous fruits again. I didn't even eat fruits and vegetables early on. It was a lot of protein. It was a lot of quick acting carbs. It wasn't a lot of fibrous fruits and vegetables. Those came later. Variety for me came later. But again, it has to be tailored to your specific individual recovery journey. Some people are like, no, there's a generic way of doing things. I don't believe we're all cut from the same cloth. We all have different things going on, different symptoms we have to manage in our recovery. The only way we can do that is by getting a team behind us that's going to tailor plans to our specific needs while also challenging our mentality. Other adjustments I made, I was cleared to go on light walks. Austin had to come with me and check me on that, so I wasn't walking too much. But a little movement after meals was helpful to get the gravity flowing, get the meals and my stomach moving a little more. And I felt less nauseous when I was doing that. Not laying down after meals, because again, the only thing bringing your food down is gravity, since your stomach isn't contracting as much. If you're laying down, your food's just kind of staying flat. But if you're sitting up, everything's coming down, right? Even if I had to lay down because I was not feeling well, which was a lot of times, I would just prop myself up on a pillow and just wedge it behind me and kind of lay like this. Staying hydrated, super, super important, because you're not going to want to drink. You're going to feel so full that you're going to want to prioritize food. You need the water in order to keep things flowing, and dehydration causes a whole nother list of issues that I can get into at a later time. Over-the-counter medications, if you want to talk to your doctor about the motility drugs, go for it. I did my own research and scared myself straight out of it. I decided, and my doctor decided, we were not going to go that route because it was just far too risky and dangerous. Some of those medications that personally I'm surprised are even offered or sold. Same thing with the surgeries. Effectiveness for me personally didn't look very high, so didn't want to go that route. I did the hard way first, and I tried eating as much as possible, doing my progressive plan to a T, and it got better. And I was very lucky in that regard. Over-the-counter medications, omeprazole, Tylenol, if you're having pain from the stomach cramps, Tums, acid reflux, digestive enzymes. I was going to try that, never really got around to it. Those things can help as well. But again, consult your doctor on this. How did I personally reduce my level from severe to mild? That was a huge jump I was not prepared for. I was prepared to live with maybe moderate for the rest of my life, where I would still occasionally get sick after meals. Today, I don't remember I have it until someone brings it up, or if there is a meal that tends to be high in fiber or fat or large in volume, then sometimes I'll get a little bit of it, but it's very rare for me today. I still have it, but I rarely remember that I have it. How did I get there? I'm telling you, I just slowly introduced foods back in. I had to learn through EDMR therapy to sit with the discomfort and learn that I was going to be okay regardless, that my stomach could handle That intake and that me being full and eating more wasn't bad. It was necessary in order to have my stomach function properly again. Honestly, I just got to the point where I was so sick and tired of feeling sick and tired all the time because it takes so much energy out of you for your body to constantly be working overtime to do that digestive process that I was like, I just want to get through this as much as possible. If you tell me to jump, I will say how high because I just want to get there already. So I just did everything that my doctors told me to a T. I put full on trust in them. I think part of that was finding a team that I could trust because I really couldn't trust the people in my eating disorder facility, which is why I wasn't as willing to listen to their guidance. I could get into that in another episode as well. But building a team that you trust is so highly important, and following what they have to say is so highly important because, I'm not a doctor, you're not a doctor. We need to rely on these professionals who have experience with this. That was one of my things too, is the people in the disorder facility that I went to, they did not have experience with gastroparesis, or at least they didn't talk like they did. These professionals that I found later, they did. They'd seen plenty of patients with gastroparesis, the whole 9 yards. They knew how to create custom plans specifically for that. And that's why I trusted them more. It's possible. I'm living proof of it. If you're feeling hopeless right now, I get it. I was there, but it's so realistic to push past this in any capacity. You can do it. I believe in you. Let's move on to bloating. This also gives me the heebie-jeebies. As harmless as bloating is, it can be so painful and distressing in recovery. I don't remember those days as much anymore, but I remember being in them and just being like, I want to take a needle and pop my stomach like a balloon. As I mentioned before, I've always had a sensitive stomach. IBS runs in my family, the whole 9 yards. Whenever I would have an IBS flare-up, my solution was to avoid food at all costs because I thought that food was the problem. I eat, I get bloated. I was so wrong, and I wish someone had checked me back then. Turns out eating and food was actually the solution. I just wasn't picking the right kinds of food for my body. Back then, I was eating all of the raw, high protein, high fiber diets that were not working well in my digestive system. I needed a little more tender love and care through foods that were easily broken down, like cooked vegetables. I was doing a lot of raw salads, a lot of protein powders, very high fiber, things that create a lot of bulk in my stomach and that weren't easily broken down because I wanted the gains, I wanted what all these bodybuilders were doing. And it just wreaked havoc on my digestive system. It was not good. This is why I will never listen to a bodybuilder over a dietitian ever again. Please do not go to a bodybuilder for advice on what you should do recovering from an eating disorder. Please, for the love of God, do not. Go to a licensed dietitian who has been through the grueling courses, has done their years of education, has taken the chem classes, who knows metabolism, who knows your own experience and what you're going through, who is specialized with case studies. Go to an actual doctor and figure that out with them. Please, I beg of you. But I digress. As I was going through the refeeding process and the bloating was becoming unbearable, I wanted to stop eating like those times I had with the IBS flares. But from my experience with that, I knew that continuing to starve myself would only make the bloating worse long term. Therefore, I decided to choose short-term discomfort for long-term relief. Let me explain. You're going to bloat either way for different reasons. One is temporary, the other is prolonged. Let's start with the prolonged. When you skip meals and are not eating, your gut bacteria or your gut microbiome can become imbalanced. Abdominal muscles can malfunction, you experience constipation, visceral hypersensitivity where you're sensitive to any amount of gas. Any one or combination of these can create chronic, painful bloating. What is the main tip to reduce that? Eating regularly again. However, as with many solutions in recovery, the sensations might get worse before they get better. Remember, your systems are slower and weaken during starvation. Regardless of whether or not you have any form of diagnoses like gastroparesis, slowed stomach motility is so common, and your abdominal and intestinal systems need to regain that strength and speed through refeeding. In the beginning, food is going to sit in your stomach longer, maybe not to the level of patients with gastroparesis, but to some extent. That allows bacteria to have more time to ferment it, which increases gas production. Your body is also going to hold on to all the nutrients it can until it trusts that a steady source of energy is coming in again, which can take weeks to months for it to earn back your trust that you're going to feed it and water it regularly. It's just trying to reserve energy and keep the lights on at home until you pay back your electric bills that have been piling up. With that, you're also going to experience severe fluid retention, which is often confused with rapid weight or fat gain, but really, it's just your body keeping reserves until it doesn't have to anymore. And that can lead to water bloating as well. The good news here is in this case scenario, all of this is temporary. For instance, the only times I really get bloated these days are on my period and maybe if I ate something funky. Or I ate something I really wasn't, supposed to, according to my IBS symptoms. For me, fiber wrecks my digestive system. If I eat anything high fiber or high bulk, like raw salads or raw veggies, things of that nature, my stomach is up for days. I love salads. Let's say I really am craving a salad and I put a lot of raw veg in there. I just have to cope with the fact that I'm going to be bloated for a little bit. And that's a normal human experience. But I feel like that's a normal amount. It's not something that where I'm bloated like all day, every day, like I was when I was starving myself. With that, we're going to pause here because it is snack time and then I will come back. Bye. I'm afraid I had my mic off for that last part because my alarm was going off for snack and I muted it, but I was like, oh, I want to finish this section first. So I finished it. I might have left some parts out. I apologize in advance. I don't want to go back and re-record because I don't know where I left off. But I did take a snack break, which is very yummy because food comes first these days. Now we are really going to talk. We're going to talk constipation, poop problems. We all have them and they are amplified in recovery. For anyone, a diet low in fiber and water is going to contribute to poor bowel function. If you don't have enough nutrients in bulk to move, it's going to get backed up in your system over time, making bowel movements less frequent and way harder to pass. Pair that with the slow digestive system, weakened intestinal muscles, perhaps even prolonged laxative use, you're going to have a hard time taking the Browns to the Super Bowl. What am I talking about here? Good old constipation. You may even be tempted to either start or continue laxative use for short-term relief at first. However, this is only going to make matters worse over time. Remember, those quick fixes, they aren't a long-term solution. It's better to just go straight through it, get it over with, and get on with your life. How laxatives work is they stimulate a bowel movement and they don't teach your muscles how to work properly again in order to function on their own. In fact, they might even make your muscles weaker. You probably know what's coming by now, and you're probably tired of me saying it because I've said it twice before already. What is the solution to regular poop cycles and bowel movements? Let's say it together like Dora the Explorer, except in plain English. Consistent and abundant food and water intake. The last thing you're going to want to do is eat when that's exactly what you need to do. If your experience is anything like mine, you will think your stomach and intestines cannot handle anymore. And the pressure is going to be unbearable at times, but they can and they will, and you will get through it and you will not die, even though it feels like you might. I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I run my script, just parts of it, through ChatGPT to see if I need to word things differently. Although I'd never really take the suggestions because I want this to be authentic and it's my podcast, not a robot's podcast. Sometimes it tells me it's like, you're being too intense. Like you need to dial it down and not scare people. I just feel like I have to be real with you and I have to relate to you and have you understand that, yeah, it's not going to be easy. It's great to give words of encouragement, but sugarcoating it, saying everything about recovery is great. It's not. It's not all butterflies and rainbows and sunshine. But you know what it is at the end of the day? It is a better life, a more comfortable life, a more positive life. You just have to get through the pun intended, to get there, unfortunately. So no, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but I will give you hope and hopefully relief that all of this goes away. Honestly, you're not going to believe that until you actually go through it yourself. I didn't. People could tell me that all the time. I listened to so many podcasts trying to give me shortcuts or other ways out because I didn't want to go through the pain and suffering. But you know what? That just makes it so much more rewarding in the long run. Getting through this and knowing that I overcame all of that and I came out on the other side better and I actually reached the nirvana that all these podcasters were preaching to me is remarkable. And it's made me so much more strong mentally as a human being because it's one of the hardest things I've ever done. And I've lived to see the other side. What's so great is I know that you're strong enough to get through it too. Because people with eating disorders, I like to think we're some of the strongest people in the world, not weak. Because even just, I hate to say discipline to go through an eating disorder, think about how many times you didn't eat when you wanted to, or I don't know, it just takes like a certain level of crazy and a certain level of discipline to get through it. And if you can get through that, you can get through this. You really can. It's just believing in yourself, which is easier said than done, right? Bottom line is, I'm not going to sugarcoat things for you. Maybe after hearing me speak, you are thinking to yourself, Alex, none of this is making me want to recover right now. It's scaring me more than anything. I don't know if I'm ready to go through all that. I hear you. I was definitely in the same boat. What's even more uncomfortable is having these issues get worse over time while staying sick. You're going to experience the same issues. If you haven't already, they're to come. If you want to prove me wrong, around and find out. But I wish I hadn't let myself get to the point that I had gotten to in my disorder. I wish I could go back and save myself before getting the gastroparesis diagnoses. But I can't. Now I have to live with that consequence for the rest of my life. And that's why I speak so passionately on this, because I don't want you to get to that point as well. Those issues will continue. If those aren't the issues that you're dealing with, issues will arise as you go on, because you are essentially just killing your body slowly. It's a scary way of putting it, but you are. So I know it's hard to hear and you might shut me off and be like, no, none of this is true. I hope that you internalize a little bit of what I'm saying, and over time you come to the realization that you can choose to get better and live a happier, healthier life, or you can choose to stay in the same poopy cycle the rest of your life. The choice is yours. For me, I remember when my bowel movements got regular again and I wasn't passing hard stool anymore, I was praising baby Jesus. I think that was also one of my hardest points in recovery. I've always hated being constipated, and I've always been constipated between the IBS-C and then the eating disorder recovery. I had to make those adjustments in my diet for what was best for my body instead of what the bodybuilders were preaching. And then I also had to learn the importance of consistent and adequate intake. Once I found that magic sauce, it's been so nice. Let's just say things are flowing naturally and well. We have a well-oiled machine over here now, and it's making me very happy. Unless I had gone through that process and gone through the torture it was to get here, I would have never learned that. And now everything's working as it should. Do I still have bad days? Yeah, we're all going to have days where it's circumstantial. That's just the human experience, but at least it's not all the time, every day. I don't know how I would let myself go through that. For what? For what? To be a short size smaller? Be a shirt size smaller? I don't know. Looking back on it, I'm like, what the was I thinking? What was I thinking? How can you make your Super Bowl experience less painful as you're going through recovery? I got you, fam. I got you. In this circumstance, it's not enough to just eat. You need to make sure you're taking in plenty of fluids as well. I feel like that alien in Star Wars, what is that alien called? On Tatooine? The one that's like, ah. Anyways, my ADHD is strong today. Okay, moving on. In this instance, it's not enough to just eat. You need to make sure that you have some adequate water intake as well. Do not make the same mistake I did. I thought that I had to prioritize food over everything else, including liquids. Therefore, I definitely was not as hydrated as I needed to be in recovery, and that made my constipation worse. I was afraid of the water bloat. I was afraid of the water weight I was going to put on, which is so silly because it just did not help things flow smoothly because everything was dry inside. It was like trying to slide down a dry tarp instead of one that's filled with soap and water for a slip and slide. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna burn. How to increase your water intake, which we can talk about this more on other segments because I could get into a whole spiel on this as well. What helped for me is I would have some form of liquid with a meal, and then I would drink it just to get down any big chunks, and then at the end I would finish the drink. I would try to do as much food as possible and then finish as much drink as possible, but then in between make sure you're drinking water as well, because I definitely did not drink enough water. I was like, I'm full, I don't want anything else in my body. you always have room for water. And the great thing about water is it only really keeps you full for a few minutes. After that, water is absorbed so quick into the small intestine, unlike food. It just goes right through you. So even if you're a little uncomfy, just know it's really important that you're keeping one of these with you. Personally, I also used Miralax once daily. It's a little white powder that is flavorless that you mix in any form of drink that you would like. It's the only thing that they would give us in the facility because it's a form of stool softener as opposed to a stimulant laxative, which is very different. I feel like Miralax worked the best for me. You can use other stool softeners and experiment with those. The way that stool softeners are different than stimulant laxatives is take the word stimulant out of it. It's not forcing contractions and forcing you to have a bowel movement. Instead, stool softeners, they just bring liquid into the small intestine to try and moisten up everything in there and help get that slip and slide going again. It's not forcing anything, but it's just helping things be a little more fluid. It's a lot safer. Stool softeners were the only thing that they would allow us in the facility. Some people, they like Colace. For me, I found that the powder worked for whatever reason better than the Colace, but I did experiment with both. The powder, Miralax, you mix into a drink. It's recommended 8 ounces of water. To be honest, I think I did it in less, but I would say 8 ounces so you get those fluids in, that hydration. I did that once a day, and that just helped things move along. That's also not a long-term suggestion, but I felt like that worked in the interim for sure. Some other things that help with constipation, a little bit of movement, not a whole lot. If you're unable to, if you're on bed rest, speak with your doctor about this as well. For me, I tried to put myself on bed rest, so I really wasn't doing a whole lot of movement. But I did take walks after meals to help with the gastroparesis, and I felt like that helped with my constipation as well. Just the little movement gets everything kind of moving again, which is really nice. Little light walks are good for you. I'm not talking hours. I'm talking like 5 to 10 minutes. That really helped. What else helped? If I stayed on a routine and tried to sit on the toilet at the exact same time every day, even if I didn't have to go, it almost taught my body that it was time. For instance, that's why they recommend when you're trying to refeed again, you stick to some sort of eating schedule because it trains your brain to say, it's around lunchtime, I need to eat. Oh, it's around snack time, I need to eat. Same thing with the toilet. I found that if I sat on the toilet at certain times during the day, it trained my brain to think, oh, it's time to go. It just made it easier. So there are different yoga poses that you can do, not strenuous, not exerting a lot of energy, just putting your feet up against the wall and laying on your back so your feet are vertical. Cat-cow, that one really helped me. This is not an excuse to exercise. These are just gentle stretches that you can do for 5 to 10 minutes and then move on with your life. Please don't use it as an excuse to exercise. That's only going to make matters worse, not better. We're going to have to make this a 2-parter because it's getting late and I'm running out of time. So there will be a part 2. I'll leave you with this. GI issues are a completely normal, temporary part of recovery. Love that word temporary because it will not last forever. It sucks right now. I know it sucks. Take it from a girl who struggled with one of the worst kinds of GI issues, one that not many people bounce back from. And somehow I lived to see the light of day again, and things are functioning normally now. I wouldn't wish that process to get here on my worst enemy. But now that I am here, I'm so glad that I just pushed through and told myself, you know what, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. Everyone says it's going to get better. Now I'm telling you, it's going to get better. In fact, looking back on it, I often think to myself, why did I not just rip off the Band-Aid sooner? I put off recovery for so long and I was dealing with these issues for so long. I wish I had listened to a podcast like this or someone had shook me and just been like, girl, just go see a dietitian already and get the process going. Because now looking back at it, I could have been here ages ago, pooping regularly, getting a normal amount of bloating, not having to deal with these issues day in and day out. Why didn't I not do this sooner? But we all have to learn and go through the process in our own time. You can have your own timeline and do what works for you. You can lean into it or you can go all in. Different strokes for different folks. But just think to yourself as you're debating whether or not recovery is truly worth it. Would you rather live a life of chronic pain or go through a period of it and then get out on the other side? The choice is yours. The choice is always yours. And you do have a choice. Let's get through our listener questions after I clean my glasses. Did you notice I'm wearing different glasses today? These are my old ones. And because I lost my new ones boating, big sad. I love how they look, but honestly, they give me the worst headaches because this is not my prescription. My prescription is way stronger than this now, so my eyes are like straining, but thank you. First question. This is the topic. They made a comment first and then they asked the question. Hopefully this makes sense to y'all because it took a second for me. Needing to feel light in your stomach, not me. You mentioned this is hard for you. So they're saying they don't really struggle with needing to feel light in their stomach. And then they're asking if this is hard for me. Yes, I have struggled with this throughout my life and early on in recovery. Sometimes still, but not as much so. It all started for me, I believe, in high school. And I didn't learn this about myself until I went through therapy these past couple years. When I was in high school, I was running cross country competitively. I wanted to run collegiately. I thought I was going to be a collegiate, perhaps even pro athlete at cross country. I found that if I was eating lighter meals throughout the day, by the time practice came around, I didn't really feel as weighed down or as sick to my stomach because our trainings were so intense that if I just had a little bit of energy to keep me going, I felt like that enhanced my performance. And then when I got home from school, I would eat a big dinner. But with that, I probably still wasn't taking in as much nutrients as I needed to. I probably could have eaten a little bit more earlier in the day, then maybe weaned off before practice, and then eaten even more when I got home. I was not doing that. I was also under the impression that smaller girls, more toned smaller girls, were the ones who were faster, which is so not the truth at all if you look at pro athletes in the Olympics. But just girls in other high school teams, I saw how skinny they were and how toned they were. And I thought if I had that same physique, I would be just as fast as they were, even though I was faster than a lot of them before I even lost weight doing cross country. I think that's when that started, that feeling of lightness that I craved because I thought it enhanced my performance. I grew out of that in college because I got into bodybuilding and I was trying to make the gains and I actually was eating a really good amount for my body. That was probably the strongest I've ever been. I was at a very healthy weight in college and then come recovery or come the eating disorder, I did fall off of that train and went back to that feeling of even just a little bit of food in my stomach made me feel sick to my stomach with the gastroparesis. So I was trying to avoid food at all costs. And I just craved that light feeling again. I didn't want to have anything sitting in my stomach and potentially be tired at work because digestion was taking a lot out of me because it was taking double the amount of energy to digest with the slow digestive system. All those things combined made me not want to eat as much. And also with ARFID, which I was diagnosed with, a lot of people with ARFID, they have a fear of either choking or throwing up. You don't really struggle with the purging aspect. You're actually afraid of that. Unlike things like bulimia, I was afraid of eating too much, potentially getting sick at any capacity. So I also was limiting my intake then as well. I didn't take until going through a heavy, extensive EDMR therapy and understanding why I really struggled with discomfort that things started to click for me and I was able to find ways to cope with that and get through that. That's where all that turned around for me. But I do understand that's a pretty normal phenomena in eating disorder recovery because you're used to in starvation always feeling a lightness to you to an unhealthy extent to the point where you even start eating a little bit of food again, you think it feels like too much or you have a pit in your stomach or you're losing energy because you're getting tired with your digestive system working so hard to break it down. Like, why am I doing this? I don't want to feel like this the rest of my life. As with everything I've shared in this episode so far, you're not going to feel like that forever. You're going to hit a point where food is going to give you energy again, and going without is actually going to make you feel sluggish and tired. But it's just getting to that point and learning to realize that once you start eating again and you get those hunger cues back, you're gonna want food in your stomach. The absence of food actually makes you feel so it does turn around eventually. I think it's just working with an eating disorder therapist to get to that point where you can learn to feel comfortable with that feeling and understand that that feeling is just a part of eating and it doesn't last forever. It's temporary. Next question. I'm doing oral feeding to help my pancreatitis, but it's killing me in other ways. A 2 kilogram gain, mental breakdowns. I don't know how much longer I can do this. First, I want you to know that I see how hard this is. What you're doing is no small feat. It's exhausting, overwhelming, and honestly scary. The weight changes, the loss of control, The mental toll, all of that is very real, and it makes sense that you're struggling. At the same time, it says so much about your strength that you're still showing up and doing it anyways. A lot of people couldn't, even myself. I was terrified of the idea of tube feeding and the loss of control that came with it. I really understand how intense that piece is. You didn't choose this because it's easy. You chose this because your body needs the support right now. Even though it feels unbearable at times, you are taking care of yourself in a very important way. And I hope that you see that. That doesn't mean that you have to just push through alone, though. The mental side of this matters just as much. If you can, I highly encourage having support alongside this, whether that's an ED therapist, someone who understands what you're going through, because you deserve help navigating the body image and emotional weight of all of this, not just the physical side. You are not failing for struggling with this. You are a human being going through something really hard. And I'm really proud of you for being honest about how much this is impacting you and for still being here, still trying. You don't have to have it figured out. I would say just keep taking it one step at a time. You're doing brilliant, and I really believe in you. That's all we have time for today. I say like 2.5 hours later. It's only going to be probably like 45 minutes for you guys. My brain's been everywhere today, y'all, but that's okay. That's just where I'm at today. I'm going to go edit now and cry myself to sleep. I'm joking. I enjoy editing, but thank you all for being here and for listening as always. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If there's anything else that you want me to speak on, I think that was all the topic requests I've had so far, but I really enjoy getting those because there are weeks where I'm like, I don't know what I want to talk about, and I'd love to be steered in a direction that makes you all want to tune in. Honestly, it teaches me a thing or two as well. Thank you for that. If you like what I have to say today, be sure to share with a friend. I'm really trying to grow this pod despite all odds, despite the hardships that Instagram is giving me right now. I'm going to have to find other outlets. But yeah, I really enjoy doing this week to week, and I'm not going to quit no matter what happens. My neighbor is outside with their electronic car now, which tells me, zoom, zoom, time to blast. With that, you all have an excellent evening, afternoon, or morning, and be well.